Hello, HMS Bobcats. Mr. Flato here. Got a special guest today. Miss
Hi.
Glucker, are you
I waved
nervous?
with the wrong hand.
This is your first Bob lesson.
A little,
It was
like a
about
5.
it was about 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Today got a special Bob lesson coming for you guys. We decided it's time that we address some stuff that we see a lot going on in 7th and 8th grade, which is that uncomfortable dating thing. Um, Natural at this age, 7th grade. I think about 7th grade is when it seems like start seeing a lot of it when kids hit 12, 13 years old. Seen it in 6th grade with some kids, 8th grade with some kids, not till high school. Some kids when they're adults. Miss Campbell shared a good quote with you about how it's like when you guys were babies
Oh,
and
yeah. Like you started walking at different times and you grew teeth at different times and you hit all of those milestones that everyone does, but you hit them at different times. So dating's also one of those things that you would hit at a different time.
so the whole romantic interest thing we're going to talk a little bit about today. Miss Kluker, what do you think kids in middle school, when they've got romantic interest or they're dating, what do you think they're really trying to get out of that?
I think that they're trying to get a connection out of that, a connection with some of, a connection from each other,
Okay,
and
getting
a
that
feeling, a
connection,
feeling
that
of like belonging to something and
sure,
maybe to
that
someone.
that deeper connection that maybe you don't get with platonic or friend type relationships. Some kids want that deeper connection.
Hmm.
Okay, I think that's, and one of the things in my studies, I know that when you do have that deeper connection, that romantic connection with somebody, it's like the brain chemistry. It's like you get a Snapchat from that special person, or you get an Instagram message, or you see them in person, and you're like, oh, that's my boyfriend, that's my girlfriend, and it's the brain chemistry that I think a lot of us as human beings get out of that situation.
Yeah, it feels good.
Everybody wants to have that special someone. They want to be somebody's special someone. Not everybody, but I think kids that are starting to engage in this, that's what they start to get out of it.
Hmm.
Um, so why? Let's maybe switch gears from our experience. Why does it seem like the romantic interest thing is a normal thing for some kids at this age? Some kids it doesn't happen for a while. Where does it go wrong? Maybe we could talk about that a little bit. Why it's such a natural thing for some kids to want, but inevitably it's such a difficult thing to have a healthy romantic relationship long term at this age. I took down a couple notes, and I just wanted to share a quote. Is where it usually breaks down is handling the responsibility. All relationships are responsibility. You got to put in work on it, and I
Hmm.
think romantic relationships, they're even more work and more
Like
responsibility.
for adults, they're really hard. I'm sure everyone's, watched their parents or watched other adults in their lives try to have relationships with each other,
Absolutely.
and they've probably seen that that's difficult. And I think where it gets difficult is because people are required to trust each other and to communicate with each other and uh, be respectful of each other.
Sure. So trust, communication, respect, those were your three keys to any
Yeah.
healthy relationship, whether it's platonic or romantic,
Hmm.
that you wanted to share today. I see a lot of inability to have effective communication, which you said is hard enough for adults. So
Hmm.
when we're asking 12, 13, 14-year-olds to have healthy communication with a romantic partner, that can be very difficult. And when you don't have great communication in a relationship, that's a lot of times where it falls apart.
Hmm.
Did you ever go to Baskin Robbins when you were a kid in the mall?
I did,
I think
yeah.
a lot of your
Loved it.
teachers that grew up in Helena, for those of you that don't know, Baskin Robbins was an ice cream shop. And they're kind of the thing, their branding was do you remember what it was?
31
31
flavors.
flavors,
Yeah.
right? And why am I bringing up ice cream? This is what Mr. Flavor does all the time.
I was thinking they have frozen moose up the road too, where
Frozen
they
mousse.
get
Oh, that's a
options.
great. Okay, so that
Yeah.
might be something the kids know, but when I was a kid going in, I wouldn't just get the vanilla ice cream every time. What was your flavor?
Bubblegum?
Bubblegum mint
Yeah.
chocolate chip was mine.
Yeah.
But inevitably, I would come in and I would wonder, what does the bubblegum taste like? What does the licorice taste like? What does the mint chip taste like? What
Hmm.
does the Rocky Road taste like? And I think a lot of times with dating as well is it's a trial and error process. You may be dating somebody or have a romantic interest, but you're kind of like, well, I wonder what it's like having interest with that person. And
Mhm.
so much of how these relationships break apart is I see a lot of kids where that happens after a week or two or a month, and I think that's a natural thing.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I'm sure it hurts on some level for
Absolutely.
the vanilla flavor that gets stitched for the mint flavor.
That is not a good feeling at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But dating is a trial and error purpose, and out of that trial and error purpose, you need to figure out maybe what you want in a romantic partner.
Mhm.
You might want to figure out what you're willing to tolerate from somebody else and their imperfections in a partner.
Mhm.
What else might you find out about dating when you get a little bit older or you are in this trial and error process?
I think how they treat you
How they
and
treat you, what you're willing
how yeah,
to.
what you're willing to put up with,
Absolutely.
what kind of treatment.
And they don't teach this in class. We do this on maybe a Bob lesson, but in life, that's kind of a trial and error process. You got to go
Mhm.
figure out on your own. The overall lack of maturity at this age is tough. I know a lot of adults that act like kids, and um, having a healthy romantic relationship requires high levels of maturity for some of these things. Handling how do you handle your emotions? If I come over and I say, hey, you're dating Vanilla, right? Well, Vanilla was over there talking to Rocky Road. Are you able to handle your emotions and go communicate effectively and say, hey, what's going on? Or do you just react with your emotions? I see a lot of that with kids. They just go react. They think worst case scenario right away, and then they're not able to handle that.
I see a lot of friends doing a lot of the communication for the people that are dating, and I mean, it just seems like an accident or something terrible waiting to happen when people have their friends talking for them.
hmm Back in the day, we used to joke before phones. You'd have the little piece of paper. Do you want to date? Yes, no, maybe, and then you would send it. And I kind of think back when we were kids. But if you're not mature enough to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody that maybe you're getting to know, and you kind of feel like, hey, I kind of like this person. If you can't talk to them one-on-one, you probably aren't mature enough to be dating. Is that fair enough to say? I shouldn't have to send my friend over or have my friends go secretly, covertly say, hey, what do you think about mint chocolate chip?
Hmm.
Do you think mint chocolate chip likes licorice or strawberry or whatever? Back on that ice cream metaphor.
Hmm.
Um, and then if you are in a romantic relationship, it can be tough sometimes balancing, okay, my friends may get a little bit jealous that I'm giving my attention to this person. And then that can create a whole other layer of things going on from what I see.
Hmm.
And then having the maturity to balance that, commitment to these are my friends, this is my romantic person, and finding that balance, I
Yeah.
see is difficult for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Um, Expectations of dating. What do you think? Expectations of dating. You brought up a great point when we were prepping for this that what dating for us being in our 20s and 30s is going to look a whole lot different than if you're 11, 12, 13, 14. We talked about that at the beginning. What are they really getting out of this?
Hmm. Like, are they going on dates with each other outside of school, or what do they go on dates, or
Is that
how are they dating if they're not going on dates?
sure? Because I know for like people our age, the whole dating experience is, you drive, maybe pick them up, go do something fun together, share that fun experience. Where part of the challenge again, dating at this age is nobody has their driver's license. Nobody really has any money. They don't have a job to go like, take somebody to the movies. Even though I know some kids still do that, and so maybe the expectations and what it looks like is different at this age. Maybe sometimes it is just about that status or that feel good or that's being able to tell somebody that's my boyfriend or my girlfriend. And one of the things I kind of question to kids a lot of times is, what are you really getting out of this if it's just a status thing and you can't really, you're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. Inevitably, when all this stuff starts to add up and it breaks apart and then feelers get hurt, was it worth it? Because sometimes you can change friendships and you can lose that friendship.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of tricky. Any thoughts on that?
No.
No. One other thing I see is a little bit of an emotional manipulation, and that's the whole, if you don't do something, I'm going to break
Oh
up with
yeah,
you, or I'm not going to like you
yeah.
anymore. Again, super, super unhealthy.
I think like having boundaries, right,
Mm-hmm.
would, I mean, to the manipulation.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell them what that might look like in a
So,
scenario?
so a scenario would be like if someone was dating someone and that someone said, if you don't do, what do you think it could be? If you don't do something, like one thing, then I'm going to break up with you. If I were that person that they were telling that to, I mean, I might not want to date someone who's going to do that to begin with.
Yeah.
So,
Kind of ended on the three things you said, kind of that you were saying, whether it's platonic or romantic relationships. Leave our seventh and eighth graders 3 tips, advice for healthy relationships, which was your 3 tips.
oh, my 3 tips. I think that people have to be able to trust each other to be in a relationship. They need to be able to communicate face to face and not through other people, or not through, yeah, texting. So face to face, those real live conversations, and they also need to be able to respect each other before they can even be in a relationship.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hope you guys like this. All right, I wanted to finish up with just some takeaways, pulling some important points out of the discussion that Miss Glukert and I had, which is relationships take a lot of work. The more intense the relationship, the more work they're going to take. Romantic relationships can be and really are a trial and error process that with a lot of learning that is involved along the way. If you can't talk to somebody one-on-one, face-to-face, you're probably not mature enough to be romantically involved. If you're dating someone just for the status of it, to say, I've got a boyfriend, I've got a girlfriend, I want you to think about, is it really worth it when inevitably it probably falls apart? Emotional manipulation is not cool. If you feel like you have to emotionally manipulate somebody in a relationship, probably not mature enough to handle that. In the final, any relationship, trust, communication, respect. So, all right, that brings us to this week's quote of the week. And this, to me, crew, in my professional opinion, is what healthy romantic relationships are all about. A healthy relationship is the result of two people sharing their completeness, not completing each other. And what does that mean? If we think about Eric Erickson, finding out who you are first, getting established in your life, getting your life in a great spot before you really start dating or trying to have a romantic relationship, I think you're going to be a lot more successful. I understand that at a certain age, it's a natural, innate desire for some people to seek out. And the one thing I'll say is that I'll just caution you that it's probably going to be a bumpy road for a while, given all the things that Miss Glukert and myself talked about. And for those of you that put that off a little bit until you're a little bit more mature and you get in a good spot yourself, I think you'll be in a better spot to have a healthy romantic relationship someday. And we're off to this week's Jellybean Question of the Week winners, who are Maddie One Braid, Maddie Sasser, Gabby Radley, Luke Ruck, Lily Stembridge, and Maiden Hill. Of course, the answer was a nose. This week's Jellybean Question of the Week, I really like this one. What 5-letter word stays the same when you take away the first, the third, and the 5th letter? If you think you know, submit your answer to the Bob Box. Get it in no later than Friday. Tune in next week to see if you're a winner. All right, Bobcats, couple more weeks until winter break. Let's finish strong here.